brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us at spacedoutradio.com and on Spreaker. As we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast you live on this Monday night, early Tuesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are broadcasting 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. We want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the conspiratorial, paranormal, ufological, spiritual, and so much more. If you like our music, head to our website, spacedoutradio.com. You can download anything you want from the guitar god himself, Ron Bumblefoot THAL. You may remember his name from his days in Guns N' Roses. All our music is provided by Bumblefoot. If you're a social media junkie like I am, you can follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we send a shout out to our fans listening in on the SHR Media Network in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles and the SOR Space Travelers, as well as online at Paranormal Forum. If you're a fan of Spaced Out Radio, coming soon, we're working diligently on it, is our Space Travelers membership, where for only $5 a month, you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews, have a special section on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or to distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The New Agora newspaper is the official paper of this show, and the iTunes app, Spirit Storybox. It's the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio. As part of our monthly series this month leading up to the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario in 3 weeks' time, June 24th to 26th, we will be discussing a lot about ETs, UFOs, disclosure, and the conspiracies behind them. There is, no doubt, a hidden story behind those who are from out of this world, but there are other conspiracies as well. We are seeing them on a daily basis, from 9/11 and JFK to voter suppression and gas price collusion. We are affected by them every day. Sure, there are the blind people who say that we conspiracy theorists are just a bunch of nut jobs looking for press or too busy making tinfoil hats to pay attention to what's truly going on. The belief from the skeptics is people who believe in conspiracies are, in fact, out of their minds. And in return, we react by calling them sheeple. As much as I can't stand that term, it's a very accurate description.
In Toronto, Ontario, the Conspiracy Culture, owned by Patrick Whyte, deals with conspiracies every day. His hobby store gets all sorts of people walking through the door, from those wanting to learn more about Roswell to those who are looking for answers as to why Monsanto is getting a free ride. People have questions. It's our right to question. It's democracy. And it's nice to be able to head to a store where information can be exchanged. Patrick will also be a part of the Alien Cosmic Expo. Patrick Whyte, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
Good, brother. How you doing?
I am fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time. And you know what? I thank Joanne and Bob for bringing us to your attention and vice versa, because the one thing about this show on Spaced Out Radio is our listeners want to be in the know. And someone like you, who's taking part in a conference, and the store you have, Conspiracy Culture, which can be found at conspiracyculture.com, you're looking for the same answers as everybody else, but you've done something about it and started this store. What made you open up Conspiracy Culture?
Oh, wow. Quite of a journey, to be honest. In my younger days, in my late teens, I could spend literally the entire day going from one side of the city to the next and visiting all the rare and different bookstores, and I would come home with maybe one or two titles at most, and recognize that there was a complete lack in the city for representation of these particular topics and subjects. And as I got older, I guess it turned more from a hobby and a side interest into a full-time fascination and almost like a life mission. As corny as it sounds, on September 11th, 2001, after watching that day unfold on the television, it was definitely not jiving in terms of what I was hearing from the media and the government and what I was actually witnessing with my own eyes. And it just, the next week, it just was basically 24/7, a week of all-nighters looking into all sorts of information. And lost my job as a result of that. And over the next few years, decided to start saving some money to hopefully open up a bookstore, which, with the help of my beautiful wife, Kadena, became a reality on August 26, 2006, when we opened up Conspiracy Culture here in Toronto.
Did you notice quite a demand for people who were out there trying to find answers? Because let's face it, the reason why any of us get into this type of business or this type of product and alternative media, if we can call us that, is because we have certain things that happen to us, Patrick, that are just unexplainable. It may be an itch that we need to scratch. It may be a personal experience. Do you find a lot of people walking through your doors trying to find answers that just have them scratching their head?
Sure. And there's usually, like you said, there's usually a catalyst for someone to come into the shop and to be seeking out some information. So we have people from all walks of life who've encountered all sorts of different things. We have people who've seen things in the sky. We've had people experience weird situations with their doctors in the pharmaceutical industry. We've had situations with educational systems. I mean, so people, they're definitely curious, and they know that there's something up, and the answers that the government and the television are telling them, it doesn't make sense to them. So, yeah, there's definitely the one common denominator amongst everyone coming in the shop is an underlying curiosity, spurred by something that's happened to them, for sure.
Is there a question you can't answer that someone has come through the door and asked, I need to know this?
It's tough. I mean, I'm pretty opinionated, obviously, being submerged in alternative information 24/7 for pretty much a decade now. But, I know that I'm still just human, and I don't have all the answers, but I do my best to provide as much perspective as possible. Has there been a question that I have not been able to answer? Oh, I don't know. I don't know about the whole reincarnation thing. I'm a little bit stuck on that. I'm not quite sure whether or not we're reincarnated.
Well, there is a lot of things that we need to answer, and there are some things like reincarnation we're not going to find out until we're well gone. I'm still up in the air about reincarnation. I think it's reality, but that's just a personal opinion of me just hearing people speak on the other side like you are right now in trying to figure this out. At what time in your point of life, and you mentioned 9/11, did you actually say that we need to do something about this? Did you have any paranormal experiences as a kid growing up? Did you see any UFOs or have any strange occurrences that maybe helped lead to the conspiracy culture?
It's tough to say in my youth, because there's a lot of imagination and different things as well that are involved growing up. But I do know that anytime there was something on the television or on the news that was pertaining to something bizarre, whether it be the Bermuda Triangle or a Bigfoot sighting or somebody stating that they've seen a flying saucer or aliens or something like that, I was always just absolutely drawn to it and found it just incredibly fascinating. And, I would say it was probably in my mid-20s, so maybe a year or two before opening the shop, where my wife and we were up north, and we definitely saw some lights in the sky. Wasn't a satellite, wasn't a plane, wasn't firebugs, wasn't swamp gas. Definitely some sort of an intelligent craft moving about the sky in a way that was not typical at all.
There's always something, isn't there? Always something.
Oh, of course. There's always something.
Well, let me ask you this then. When you go to your work, Conspiracy Culture in Toronto, Ontario, do you get a lot more people coming in just to talk and shoot the breeze with you? Or do you get a lot of people coming in to actually buy, whether it's books or theories or whatever you're selling, videos?
It's a bit of both. I do. I mean, if you can envision a bartender, sitting there at the end of the night and people coming in and there's nobody else there, they're just going to chat away and, basically unload their whole life story and anything that's going on that's pressing or they find that they need to deal with. So in that sense, because people know what we do at the bookstore and people know that there's no judgment, there's no bias, it's just, it is what it is. A lot of people know that they can come in there and discuss anything that's on their mind. So we do get people who, they can't talk about certain things at work. They can't talk about certain things with their family. Their friends find it a little bit too bizarre for them. So, yeah, I mean, throughout the course of the day, there are definitely a few people who will come in that just need to unload or just to ask me questions or just to get some perspective. I don't mind that.
Have you noticed, Patrick, a real change in people over, say, the last decade or two as people's minds are starting to open up a little bit more and questioning what is going on because everything seems so, how can I put it, vanilla? Everything seems vanilla ice cream these days, where we're not supposed to look for the strawberry or the chocolate. I know that's a horrible analogy, but in the end, a lot of people today seem to be opening up and starting to question what is truly going on out there. Have you noticed a difference?
Sure, and I think it's the result of the quote-unquote conspiracy affecting more and more individuals as time goes on. It was, maybe at one time affecting a small portion of the population, but, I mean, we all spend money, so we're all definitely feeling the various different things in terms of the monetary manipulation. And for those of us who have paid money or are paying money or will pay money to go to educational institutions, I mean, you see how confined that particular box of thinking is. And if you don't conform to what your professors are espousing, you're going to get failing grades. So people feel it that way. And then there's just various different ways. There's just so many external variables that can affect us. And now that we're pretty much at the end game, I think there's just so much happening every day that more and more people are feeling it, and they want answers. So they're not getting them from the mainstream media because, like you said, everything is so vanilla. All you're going to see on the news is, stuff it's ridiculous. So they need to start searching for alternative answers. And you can't find it at Kohl's. You can't find it at Chapters and Indigo. I mean, first of all, Chapters and Indigo, they're run by Heather Reisman, who, when you look at her biography, like her biography on the Chapters website, on the third paragraph, last sentence, it mentions that she's also a member of the Bilderberg Steering Committee. So when you're wandering through Chapters and Indigo bookstores and you wonder why you can't find anything of substance or value, I mean, there's your answer right there. So it's ridiculous. But like you said, it's everywhere. It's everything. It's up, it's down, it's left, it's right. I mean, we're marinating in it all day.
I know for me, when I hear the conspiracies that are going on, some of this frustrates the living heck out of me. You're surrounded by it every single day. How do you keep your wits at hand knowing that there's an alternative truth out there? Most people aren't seeing what truly happened on 9/11. Most people aren't really caring that every gas station around seems to have the same prices no matter who is selling it. To me, that's collusion. Or the voter fixing that has been brought forward while the presidential primaries are going on south of us in the border. How do you stay sane?
I spend a lot of time in nature. I spend a lot of time in nature, and I have a medical marijuana prescription, which definitely helps with the anxiety. So those are the two, I would say those are my two major outlets.
And we all need that outlet in order to try and find our own zen, our own peace, our own happiness. Have you noticed since you started this show on a personal level that maybe things have become a little bit darker for you because you're seeking the truth just as everyone else is, but when you're dealing with the negative and conspiracy theories, let's face it, they are on the negative connotation. Has that affected you at all?
I guess, if I really truly think about it, it's I think it has in a way. It's been a bit of both. I definitely feel empowered knowing that I'm not the type of personality to just take everything that I'm hearing for face value. I'm a little bit more. I'm a little bit stronger than that. So in that sense, I'm glad that I'm around this information 24/7. It gives me a little bit of something that I know the average person doesn't get. But at the same time, because like you said, it is such heavy information. It's very bleak. It's very dreary. I guess there are times where I find like it does weigh on me, and like I said, those are usually the days where I got to go and take a bit of a break and get out of the city and do a bit of camping or some hiking, spend some time under a waterfall. But it gets tough. It's not pleasant stuff.
Okay, you're about to hear a siren right now. If you hear a siren in the background, that's only because I broadcast out of my home. And about a good par 500 yards away is the fire department. And in my neighborhood, they don't use pagers because we're so rural. So they blast the old World War II air horn. So if you hear the siren, it should blast here one more time. Here it goes. Don't know if you can hear that. Anyways, now we're clear. They always blow it twice.
I caught a faint bit of it.
Well, what's funny is when we moved up north into the sticks here, our realtor forgot to tell us about the fire hall siren. So our first night in our brand new house at 6:45 in the morning, this horn starts blaring. And all I am thinking of is the Russians are coming, the Japanese are coming, the Muslims are coming, or it's them damn aliens again. And I'm like up like a shot trying to figure out what the Sam hell I just heard. So it's one of those things that we live with. When it goes off during the show now, I actually make it part of the show because it's kind of fun when it does. I mean, it's sad that they got to be called out. getting back to you for a moment here. When you started this and you started looking into these conspiracies and you end up starting Conspiracy Culture, the website, if you want to look at it, audience, is conspiracyculture.com. I know when I started this show, when I started telling people about what I did, people made fun of me. There's a few friends who kind of shy away now. You know, I haven't really lost any friends, but there's people who pull away. Did you experience a lot of that on a personal level from family and friends?
Oh man, the only people who were really supportive from the get-go were my mom and dad. It was quite sad, actually, how many of even my close friends and relatives were finding the idea complete nonsense. I was having more people tell me that I should open up a Blockbuster than a bookstore dedicated to conspiracies.
That's horrible. That's horrible. Have any of them come back saying, wow, I've looked into this stuff? Or was it kind of one of those things where you didn't support me when I was starting this out? You thought I should be wearing a tinfoil hat in the middle of some padded cell, but now you want answers. Did it make you kind of scratch your head somewhat?
No, because, I mean, if you think about it, nobody really splooged out of their mother's uterus with like a full-out understanding of, you know, what's really going on in the world. So, you know, some of them who were kind of naysayers from the get-go, they, you know, when I see them now, they're like, oh, you know, I've looked into this, or I heard about that, or if they see something on TV, or if they hear something interesting or read an interesting article, they'll email me or they'll call me at work and they'll be like, oh, hey, I saw this. And I'll engage them because that's sort of my role. I mean, you know, it's not it was like pretty much a life choice back in 2005 before opening that this was what I was going to do, you know, just be one of those people who just runs and jumps into the machine and grinds their body up against the gears and whatever. If I can damage it in any way possible, that's what I'm here for. But you know, that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely, but on a personal level, though, it had to take its toll a little bit. I mean, you sound like a guy, Patrick, who's really strengthened your own personal resolve in regards to this. But the humanity of it all is when people are questioning whether or not you believe in UFOs, whether or not you believe people who've had contact with extraterrestrials, the paranormal, 9/11, JFK, voting, whatever it may be. You know, when people question you, and these are supposed to be people that you trust, you had to be let down a little bit.
Oh, of course. But, you know, if they take comfort in, you know, watching the nightly news and thinking that everything that they're watching is accurate and that the government cares for them and whatever else, then so be it. Like, you know, everybody's different strokes for different folks. I can't start to develop a disdain towards people because they don't subscribe to my ideas, because I mean, there'd be just so much hate and anger. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. But all I can do is like just have the shop open, and anytime someone's curious and if they want to come in, I'm there. You know, that's what I'm there for. I'm not the type of person to stand on the street corner and preach. So why not open a shop? And if someone's curious, I'm there for them. They can come in and ask questions, browse the books. We can talk about anything.
And I guess that's your saving grace mentally too, as you have grown into conspiracy culture, because you've grown up with it. That's your baby. That's your business that you started. And as you've grown into it, you kind of build this hard shell. Interesting question here, though. Have you ever had any government officials or men in black or just strange or odd people come into the store and say, you know, Patrick, you probably shouldn't be doing this?
I would say in the first week and a half of being open, we had a pair of gentlemen come into the shop, and they were wearing suits, no badges, no identification. They weren't wearing sunglasses. They just a couple guys in suits, and it was really bizarre. They just sort of wandered around the shop and just looked very intently at a lot of the titles, and were making notes, and just sort of like before exiting, they were there for about 20 minutes, and before exiting just sort of stared at me and gave me this really hard stare. That I found very bizarre. And it's just part and parcel with the whole shop. I mean, it's conspiracy culture. So, one of the best things about the shop is just the sheer vast array of bizarre and eclectic and super interesting people that come into the shop. Like maybe in 2009, we had a guy come into the store and just slowly started browsing the shelves and got maybe halfway into the shop, walked across to the other side of the aisle, and walked back down towards the door and put his hand on the door, opened it, was about to walk out, and he turned to me and he said, "Can I see your monoatomic gold that you've got behind your counter?" And it just like, I didn't have, like, we carry monoatomic gold, and I had some, but I didn't have any in the display. I had it beneath the counter, and I don't know how the guy would have known that. And just the way he like slowly turned his head and looked at me and said, "Can I see your monoatomic gold behind the counter?" and just slowly started walking to me. It really creeped me out. So of course I take it out, and he's looking at it, and he pulls out this small little glass vial which had what looked like pink fluid in it, and he said, this is the rose gold." And he goes, "Here, feel this." And it looked like just, the smallest little glass vial. Couldn't have weighed more than a gram or two, and it was liquid on the inside. But when I held it in between my thumb and my forefinger, it felt like I was holding, easily a can of pop. Like, that's just the weight to it. And he said, this is what we alchemists use to make the monoatomic gold. And he just sort of smiled and then left the shop. And oddly enough, like 2 years later, I spoke to a woman who had come in, and we were talking about monoatomic gold, and she said that one day she had gotten off a streetcar, and there was a guy just sort of standing there staring up in the sky and just looking absolutely fascinated. So she asked what he was staring at. And he goes, "Oh, I'm staring at this craft. Don't you see it? It's just up there above the building." And of course she couldn't see it. But within a minute or two of him articulating what it looked like, the colors, the shape, so on and so forth, she said she started to see it, and it just started to like freak her out. And she asked him what his name was, and his name was Carl. It was the same dude that was in my shop looking at the monoatomic gold. Like, he told me that his name was Carl. All kinds of weird stuff, but I have people bring in photographs of things that they see in the woods. I have people bringing in photographs of things that they take pictures of in the sky. All kinds of things. Ex-pilots coming into the shop to tell me stories. People that, their parents worked within the Avro program, working on the Avro Arrow and the Silver Bug. All sorts of fascinating stories. It's easily the best perk of operating the store is what I hear from the customers.
Well, let's get into a little bit more of that, because this is very intriguing. And I think we need to go down this direction, Patrick, to learn a little bit more about your clientele that you have. I'm sure you have some more stories you would love to share. We're going to hop out for a break here at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Patrick Whyte, conspiracyculture.com is his website. That's also his store name in Toronto, Ontario. Patrick will be taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo in June here, 24th to 26th in Brantford, Ontario. We're going to be talking a lot about this conference coming up over the month. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small, you're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost?
Look no further than Spaced Out Radio.
SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click on to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on radio
or our website, including social media.
From commercial spots to banners, we have it all.
Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the 4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter, @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, over on Paranormal Forum Online, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, as well as on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles and the SOR Space Travelers. That is our main flagship for chatting. And just so you know, SOR Space Travelers, Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight. It is epistemology. Epistemology is the password for the SOR Space Travelers. Thank you, Bill, for setting that up. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to that to hear our archives. As well, our website, it's going to have a new look very soon, once again, is spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night on the show, Mike Ricksecker will join us. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a ghostorian. Yes, back in the paranormal tomorrow night. Tonight, though, we are talking conspiracies. Conspiracyculture.com is the website for Patrick Whyte. It's also the name of his store in Toronto, Ontario. Patrick is part of the Alien Cosmic Expo that will be taking part June 24th through the 26th in Brantford, Ontario. If you're a hockey fan, that's the home of Wayne Gretzky. Yes, the great ones. Hometown. Going to be talking aliens there. Seems a little weird. I don't know why, but it just does. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Dave. How are you, buddy?
Good, my friend. Hey, right before we went to break, you were telling us about some of the odd and strange experiences you have had in the store. You know, you talk about Carl, you talked about the two men in suits who came in. I'm curious, when you have a store like Conspiracy Culture, there has to be a ton of stories that you have from people who've come in, and you can just tell that they're sane, that they're telling you the truth, and they unload. What are some of those weird stories that you have heard?
Oh, wow. There was, like I mentioned, we had an ex-pilot who was frequenting the shop for about a year and a half, and he had shown me numerous photographs over that period of different things that he had photographed during flights that he was doing. And some of the things were just absolutely incredible. Balls of light, ropes, like light ropes, things that looked like just like saucers, other things that looked like rods, probably a good 20 to 30 different images that he had. Incredible stuff. And, you know, super credible guy. Didn't get a hint of any sort of crazy off of him. And, yeah, I mean, it was fascinating. Every time he came in, you were sort of anticipating him to pull out some photographs. And that's what it was like for a good year and a half. And then just didn't see him anymore. So it might have moved, might have died, might just stop coming in. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Do you ever have people just walk in where you're like, look, you're way off base, you're way off rocker, but they are so convinced that there is something following them, or they're being tracked, or something along those lines, that they just run into your store and they vent away? I mean, that has to be hard too, because you pretty much have to vet everyone who comes in as a customer.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not just a conspiracy theorist. I mean, at this point, I'm a conspiracy therapist. So, you know, at our first location where we were at for 8 years, we weren't that far from CAMH, which was the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. And there were a few times where I definitely felt as though, you know, someone had just gotten a day pass and found their way into our shop. But for the most part, you know, they're very credible people, you know, people who I think are of very sound mind and body, and they've just had a very bizarre, peculiar situation happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to be a little forceful and strict with people? Just say at times, you know, like, hey, you know what? I need you to leave. I'm sorry. It's just one of those things. Like, you don't want to trip people out because everybody is a potential client. But there has to be certain people that you just have to say, look, I can't have you here. I apologize. You know, you go all Canadian on them, and I apologize. I'm sorry, but you got to go.
Yeah, there was one guy. I won't name names, but if any of my customers are listening, and they were there during that first year, they'll know. But there was one guy who used to hang around the shop all the time. He would never buy a single thing, and he would just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And anybody who would come in to browse the shelves, he would just go right up beside them and just start talking to them about whatever it was that they were looking at. And there was one day where this sweet old woman had come in, and she's over at the occult / paranormal section, and she's looking at some books. And the guy goes right up to her and just sort of like stands literally not even a foot away from her and just sort of leans into her ear, and he's like, "So, you're a witch, eh?" It was just like, she looked so pissed. I was just like, okay, bud, you know what? We got to draw the line somewhere. And then that was the end of that. But that's the only individual that I've ever had to ask to leave and have basically given the ban hammer. That's it.
When you look at the people who come in, and everybody always seems to have some sort of story, what are some of the top conspiracies that people come looking into your store for information on?
For the most part, it tends to be, current events. So, when a plane goes missing and they can't find it, people want to come in and learn about that. If there's major collusion going on within a certain industry, people want to come in and they're interested in that. But for the most part, it's the usual stuff: money, JFK, aliens, secret societies, that kind of stuff.
Do you ever get bored of the topics? Take one like JFK or 9/11. Do you get bored of talking about those?
Never. The JFK conspiracy is like one of the most fascinating topics ever. I could never get tired of talking about this stuff. It's like, I've never smoked crack, but I'd imagine it would be like smoking crack.
that is quite an analogy. Quite an analogy. I often say to people on this show, they say, well, what made you get back into radio? And I said, you know what? Radio is like heroin. Once you get that first one, you can't go back. You have to keep pushing for it and pushing for that high. And that's what radio is like as well. Well, let's get into JFK a little bit. What angle do you take?
Oh, wow. I mean, well, when you think about all the different groups who potentially wanted JFK out of the picture, I mean, there were just so many, and so many that were completely competent enough and capable of removing him from the scene. So, was it the mobsters? Was it the military-industrial complex? He wanted to end the wars. He wanted to do away with the Federal Reserve. He wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and cast it to the wind. But, I think the one thing that everybody always needs to be aware of is just, it's always about the money for me. So when you think about just the power that the Federal Reserve has and the people behind that and what they can do with those sheets of money that they print off every day, all day, I mean, you can buy almost anything and anyone at that point. So in terms of the severity of like the shock to the system, in terms of the change that would have happened had he done away with any one of those particular facets of the system, it would have easily been the money. And I think it was the banksters that ultimately called the shot on JFK. But who knows? I mean, it could have been someone from every single one of those different groups could have had a guy with a gun positioned somewhere in Dealey Plaza that day. It's really tough to say. I do know, however, I would bet my left nut that it was not Lee Harvey Oswald, though. That's for sure.
I agree with you on that. And they've already proven the rifle that he used, there was no way that even the best of the world's military snipers have tested out similar rifles, if not the rifle, and the time it took to blast off 3 shots that accurately with that rifle on a moving target is impossible. Even the best could not do it.
Oh, sure. Not only that, but I mean, just like the whole, 7 separate entry and exit wounds between the 2 bodies from one friggin' bullet. Like, you got to be smoking some seriously flavored bath salts to be subscribing to that kind of stuff these days.
Mm-hmm. Eric Markham in Paranormal Forum just made an interesting comment. Only 2 presidents have stood up against the Federal Reserve, and they were both shot in the head in public.
Yeah, and don't forget what happened to Garfield as well. So I mean, it's pretty obvious, you know. And the first question too, I think that the lawyers ask is like, what, key bono, like who benefits, you know. So you always got to follow the money. Always follow the money.
You know what? I've always wanted to know about the babushka lady in regards to the JFK assassination, because she seems so out of character in the Zapruder film. And
oh, sure.
What do you think the story is with her?
Oh, man, I have no idea. I'm not even sure what the hell she was even doing there. It's just like you said, it just seems so completely out of place in terms of what was going on that day and how she was acting and what she was doing, and it was just so bizarre. So bizarre.
You know what? The one thing about the Zapruder film, and Joe in the SOR Space Travelers makes an interesting comment. He says the Zapruder film was edited. JFK was shot first. Do you believe the Zapruder film is an accurate analogy, or do you think that video has been tested so much that it just cannot be accurate at all?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is gauge the magnitude of whatever it is that we're watching. So if you're watching the assassination of the President of the United States, you know, I mean, how many hands does that go through before it's shown on television? Like how many editors, how many various different high-ranking individuals from within the intelligence community are looking at that or touching that or having their way with it before it finds its way onto the television? It's just, there's no way that it couldn't be handled. And, you know, keep in mind too, Zapruder was also a Freemason as well. So there's all sorts of different conspiracies about that, but there's no way that it was unadulterated for sure. There's just no way.
Well, since you've studied the case, there is another film out there that the government refuses to release, and they will not release it back to the family who shot the video. Do you think that there is probably a big reason as to why, that it maybe shows a different shooter?
Of course. I mean, if the government is concealing anything, there's obviously a reason for it. And more likely than not, it would probably prove that what they've been telling everyone is just a complete and utter crock. I mean, the truth fears no investigation. And, you know, the government should be transparent, especially when it comes to something like this. I mean, that was the end of the age of innocence, right? That's huge. If you have something to prove something, release it. It's just like the 9/11 stuff. What, they release those tiny little clips from the Pentagon that like don't really show anything? I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke.
And we're going to get into 9/11 later on in the show. But if we follow the JFK trail, Robert Kennedy, his brother, is killed, and now conspiracy theorists are believing that John Kennedy Jr. was also brought down when his plane crashed, because everybody knew that he was going to be another president, and he would have, you know, brought some, if you want to call it, respectability back to the White House from the old guard that has pretty much ran the White House over the last number of years. Do you buy into that theory as well about Jack Jr.?
Well, I think anybody from the Kennedy family could have potentially wanted to carry on the legacy and would therefore have been deemed a threat by the powers that be. So, of course, there's the curse of the Kennedys. I don't think that there'll ever be an opportunity for another Kennedy to get high up in American politics. I don't see it happening.
It is kind of sad when you think about that you have some sort of government trail that is taking out an entire family because they want to bring betterment to the population, betterment to people. It kind of makes you wonder why they haven't gone over after Bernie Sanders that way.
Well, I mean, there's obviously reasons as to why they're not going after going after Bernie Sanders. But, I mean, a politician is a politician. It doesn't matter if you're a Bush or a Clinton or an Obama or a Trump, a.k.a. Drumpf, or a Bernie Sanders or a platypus. I mean, if you're a politician, and you're at that tier of politics, chances are someone else has their hand up your ass, and it's just a Punch and Judy show. So Bernie Sanders, to me, is just as big of a part of the problem as Donald Trump, as Barack Obama, as George Bush, as Bill Clinton. You know, to me, they're all one and the same. And it's like Cicero said, you know, politicians aren't born, they're excreted. So, you know, do away with all of them, if you ask me.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of people out there right now who would have that same opinion. So back to JFK for a few more minutes. We have about 5 minutes here before we got to take our break at the top of the hour. Give us a description of what you think happened that day in Dealey Plaza.
Oh, I think it was ultimately an occult sacrifice. I mean, I think it was Michael Hoffman had written a book about all the various different underlying occult and black ceremonial magic aspects that were incorporated into that day, just in regards to times and locations. And, you know, if you look at it from an aerial shot, Dealey Plaza sort of looks like a pyramid without the capstone, and that's ultimately where the assassination took place. So it's just, I don't know, man. There's a lot of black magic and weird shit going on with that. It was such an important sacrifice and such a major victory for, you know, if you want to refer to them as the Illuminati, so be it. But that's, to me, that's what it was. It's just they needed somebody out of the picture, and that's what happened. I mean, obviously, I wasn't there. I wasn't old enough. I wasn't even born yet. I just turned 40. But from everything that I've ever seen and read and heard about it, all the anecdotal stories from customers and so on and so forth, I mean, that was the real, that's when everybody noticed, you know, things are ultimately changing. Things are really not the way they were.
How many shooters do you think there were?
Oh, I think there was probably shooters positioned throughout the whole route of the motorcade, so that if one weren't able to do it, somebody else could have done it. You know, there are people talking about all the various different shots that were fired from all the different angles. I think it was, you know, most sense. I think it was, like they say, a couple of people espoused that it was the guy in the sewer shooting upwards from the sewer grate. I think that, to me, makes the most sense, especially when you look at how his head went back and to the left.
I still think that some way, somehow, Lyndon Johnson had something to do with that. I mean, seeing the video footage, and yeah, it's grainy. Yes, you know, they're going to make him look solemn and everything like that, but he didn't look like a heartbroken guy when his boss, who picked him as a running mate, was all of a sudden dead from 3 gunshot wounds.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want that war? I'll give you your goddamn war. And then, of course, there's the whole wink in the photograph. I mean, the guy pretty much had a Sharpie pen behind his ear ready to start signing whatever papers needed to be signed at the time. Clearly he had made a pact with certain individuals, and you could just tell from what he had done after taking office that he was complacent in the assassination of JFK, without a doubt. LBJ was definitely involved to a certain degree.
Yeah, and wasn't he a Freemason as well?
Oh, anybody who becomes a president of the United States. I mean, from the first president until today. I mean, whoever becomes president next will be a Freemason. I mean, if you look at Washington, D.C. in the late 1700s, if you look at a map of Washington, D.C., an aerial map, I mean, they brought a French Mason, Pierre L'Enfant, up to build the streets of Washington. And if you look at it, you can see an inverted pentagram. You can see a Masonic compass and right angle. You can see an owl perched on the Capitol building. I mean, this is like deep, dark magic at its finest, incorporating these symbols into the street layouts of the nation's capital. I mean, David Oveson wrote a great book, The Secrets of Our Nation's Capital. And he also wrote another book, which was great. It was called The Secrets of the dollar bill. And every single president that's been in office has 100% been a Freemason. 100%, for sure. I mean, why would they break stride? George Washington, big Freemason. All the images of him holding the trowel with his silly little apron. I mean, they're all Freemasons.
I have one quick question from Kieran Darrow in Paranormal Forum listening in tonight. And we got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes before we got to go to break. And the question is, have you ever heard of the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is all about the formation of the Federal Reserve? And if you had, what's your opinion on that?
The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. We actually brought G. Edward Griffin to Toronto for the first time back on November 16th, 2012. And the lecture that he had given was called The New World Order, A Second Look at the United Nations. And absolutely fascinating. So I definitely am familiar with him and his work. The Creature from Jekyll Island is a fantastic book. The prose is incredible. It reads like a detective story. Anyone and everyone who uses money should read it. But I would say even more than that, you should look into Eustace Mullins' book, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve. That's also it's a complementary work to Creature, but it goes a little bit deeper than Creature, I find.
All right, our guest tonight is Patrick Whyte. He is the owner of Conspiracy Culture in Toronto, Ontario. His website, conspiracyculture.com, if you want to check out the website. And we're going to get back to more conspiracies with Patrick Whyte right after this. Patrick is also a part of the Alien Cosmic Expo that will be taking place June 24th to 26th in Brantford, Ontario. So if you're on the East Coast, drive north. It's going to be one heck of a weekend. You can go to their website, aliencosmicexpo.com, to find out more information. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio on the Spreaker.com network.
Do you believe you've been in contact with extraterrestrials? Have you seen the Greys, the Mantids, or the Reptilians? I am Samantha Mullet, and on the second Tuesday of each month, you can listen and learn from my experiences with off-worlders on Spaced Out Radio's The ET Experience. With host Dave Scott, we'll sit down and chat about what's going on with our friends from other worlds. We'll also try to answer your questions, so please tune in on the second Tuesday of the month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit's story box. The iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners, and the live listeners usually get something special and hang out in the chat room. And we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
If you're a fan of social media, you can follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where our archives are stored, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're tuning in on the SHR Media Network, if you're like a first-time listener like Curandero on Paranormal Forum, thank you so much for being with us and giving us a shot, as well as if you're on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker or on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles or our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. Good to have you all with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, Mike Ricksecker will join us. He is a ghost historian. We're talking history of the paranormal tomorrow night. Reminder to you, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, subscribe to it, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website, which will have a new look here coming up soon, is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking conspiracies with conspiracy culture owner Patrick Whyte. His store, Conspiracy Culture, is out of Toronto, Ontario. Their website is conspiracyculture.com. And we're getting into it. We're getting into the conspiracies that all of us have. Maybe we should all just have tinfoil hats. We're going to ask Patrick how much he charges for those, because I'm sure he's got them on his shelves somewhere. But Patrick is a part of the Alien Cosmic Expo that will be taking part June 24th through the 26th. In Brantford, Ontario, and we will be having a number of guests leading up to that show coming on the air with us. So we thank Patrick and the many guests that we will have leading up to it to talk about everything conspiracy, from extraterrestrials to 9/11, JFK. We're into it tonight. Patrick, we are talking conspiracies with you tonight. And I got to tell you, man, conspiracies is one of my most favorite topics. We were talking about JFK right beforehand. And now, I don't know if it's happening in Toronto, but I know it's happening in the town where I am. Because of the fires up in Fort McMurray, they're saying we're out of gas. What's your opinion of the petrodollar?
Oh, it's just a complete sham. It's the only thing keeping the U.S. economy afloat at this point. And obvious manipulation. I mean, when it was like, less than $30 a barrel, I was still paying friggin' $1.15 for a liter of gas. Like, are you kidding me? So clearly there's something going on, you know. And when you get into that whole topic of abiotic oil, I mean, that's a whole other conspiracy right there. But even without that, just driving a car in any major city in Canada, you know that there's something going on at the pumps.
Well, you also have to figure out, like, Canada is one of the largest, next to OPEC, I believe the second largest oil producer in the world. And for us to not have enough gas in this country, never mind what happened up in Fort McMurray with those hideous, horrible fires that displaced 60,000 people recently, there should be enough in reserve to fill the tanks of people who need to get to work. Gas stations should not be running out of fuel. And yet you go around, I know at the gas station just up the road from me, in the last day, it's jumped from $1.12 to $1.27 per liter, which equals out to, I'm going to say, around $4.50 to $5.50 US per gallon. It's ridiculous.
And how did they justify the jump?
There's a lack of fuel.
Well, there you go. I mean, you could just cry shortages on anything, really, if that's the case, if you want to increase your profit margin. I could say to people when they come in my shop, oh, man, this is the last book on this topic that will ever be printed. I got to jack it up another $7. You know, it's nuts.
And you have to wonder about it because, like you said, when gas was down and oil was down to $30 a barrel, the fact is we were still paying exorbitant amounts of money for gasoline as well as oil products and oil-based products. It just doesn't make sense because it can't be all taxation. There has to be some sort of profit margin that is built into there that ties into the government because there was no support. Nobody was really talking about lowering gas prices in Ottawa or in any provincial capital. They were just wanting to grab the money as quickly as they could. And to me, as a taxpayer, that really upset me because there are people who are living on a budget. And gas is a major portion of their budget. When I worked my first radio career, before I started this show, okay, and I only started this show in 2014. I got out of mainstream radio in 2007. There were times, and it happened frequently, where I had to choose between going to buy groceries for my family or have money for my gas tank. And it was ridiculous. And people shouldn't be put in that position.
No, I mean, the government needs to step in and actually curb that type of manipulation and price gouging and fixing. It's clearly criminal. I agree with you 100%.
Why do you think the media never really delves into the collusion of gas companies? Because realistically, nothing is supposed to be priced the same. There is supposed to be competition, yet it doesn't matter what gas company you go to, the prices always happen to be the same.
Well, there's a lot that the mainstream media fails to discuss over the course of the 60-minute nightly news. And, I mean, that's the propaganda. That's the fourth arm of the government, right? They're ultimately the mouthpiece of the government and all these major corporations. So relying on the mainstream media or your news to tell you exactly what's going on and how you're being manipulated or taken advantage of, that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Curandero, for a first-time listener, he is getting right into this. He is saying the United States supposedly has more oil than all of the OPEC nations' known reserves, that we will never use what we have before other fuels. Why do you think this is?
Well, if you control the energy, you control the people that need the energy. And everybody requires energy. That would be my first guess. And also, too, I mean, if you think about, I'm sure the dollar as well, like we were talking about the petrodollar earlier. I mean, and we're also talking about the reason why JFK got assassinated. And I think, too, if you look at the last few nations on the globe that were part of the whole axis of evil, I think these were all countries that were not under central bank rule. And one by one, they've become targets for war, and they have their infrastructure completely decimated. And then here comes the IMF or central bank with loans, and now all of a sudden they're part of the system. So, yeah, it's crazy, bud.
It is. And when you think about it, it's sad because it's the little person who has to commute an hour, 2 hours, if you go down to LA, sometimes 3 hours a day in order to get to work. I was talking to a gentleman when I was in Las Vegas back in April, and I was playing at the MGM at the poker table there, and he was sitting across from me, and he was telling me he commutes 3 hours a day in rush hour traffic to work. That's a hell of a lot of gas.
Oh, it's nuts. And I know all about it because I'm right in downtown Toronto. And when we first opened up our bookstore, when I was living in Scarborough, almost Pickering, which is, a little bit outside of the city, it would take me about an hour and 40 minutes each way. And that would involve like bus, subway, rapid transit, streetcars. It was just, it's nuts. Like just the amount of traffic on the roads. And then, anytime you want to drive somewhere, it's nuts. And here in the city every day, it's like there's 100 different major arteries and roads into the city that are shut down for stupid reasons that just make no sense. Like just this past weekend, we had the Baycell Ride for Heart, right? Like Baycell, the margarine company, like margarine, which is like one molecule short of being plastic. So they have this thing like every year where they have this Ride for Heart, and they shut down like the two major arteries into the downtown core, and it just creates absolute chaos and pandemonium on the roads. There's like 50 road rage incidents every time this thing happens. And I just find it ironic that it's a Baycell Ride for Heart. It's like, fuck, if you eat margarine every day, you are going to have a heart attack. So, it's like, it's silly. I don't know, but maybe I'm just getting tired, and I'm just finding this world a little bit more crazy as the conversation's going on, but...
Well, you know what, though? It seems like people are catching on to the conspiracies, Patrick, but in a way it almost looks like the governments or the shadow governments, whoever it may be, are trying to find different ways in order to screw the middle class, screw the working class people out there who are making them absolutely billions upon billions of dollars. And the fact is, as long as the working class is kept in the shadows, shall we say, there's never going to be an uprising. And I think there's honestly starting to panic that maybe they've pushed it a little too far, because people are starting to realize what is going on. People are starting to fight back and claw back, saying, you've screwed me enough. Would you agree with that?
Sure. And, with things like the internet and people's ability to communicate and share ideas with like the click of a button, I mean, that's definitely helped as well. I mean, sure, you have tons of misinformation and disinformation, but once you're at it for a little bit and you plug away at this for a while, you develop a bit of a discerning eye, and you can sort of, your instinct kicks in. And the reason why the working class is such a target is because these are the people who work really hard, and they're very honest, and they'll plug away to pay their debts and to do this and to do that. And yeah, it's sad watching good, hardworking people and just have all these different struggles throughout the course of a day. It's nuts. If it's not one thing, it's the other. Nobody has time to spend with their family and to raise their kids anymore. It's just everybody's just working and overworked and underpaid, and it's nuts. The stresses in the world today, it's too much, obviously by design.
With all the turmoil in the Middle East, whether it's Iraq, Syria, Pakistan, it's a very unstable area right now. What role do you think OPEC is playing in the price gouging for what's happening here in North America when it comes to oil?
Well, I think they're a major player for sure in terms of setting prices and whatnot. It's don't they have control over most of the oil on the planet?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So you would have to assume that if they're in control of the majority of the global oil, that these are the guys that are ultimately moving the pieces on the board. So, sure, huge players, absolutely.
Do you think they're worried about a hydrogen economy?
Oh, I mean, they're afraid of anything that isn't petrol-based, I think. Just look at anybody who's created any sort of like look at Nikola Tesla, for example. You can go and ask 100 high school students if they know who Nikola Tesla is, and maybe 2 out of the 100 will recognize the name, and it might because of the rock band or because of the car, you know. So anybody that's dealing with alternative forms of energy, they're suppressed. There's all sorts of people who created water-based fuel cells, all sorts of different things, and they just, you know, they slip in the tub, or they fall down a flight of stairs, or, you know, they commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head twice, or, you know, other different things.
Then how does a guy like Elon Musk get away with what he is doing by absolutely deploring the gas and oil industry by making electric vehicles? Do you think it's because the Tesla motor car is so outrageously priced that anybody who needs the vehicle won't be able to afford it? Or do you believe that he's just that high up in the game right now, whether it's with the Bilderbergs or whether it's in the Illuminati type status, that he has a free pass in order to do this?
Well, I'm sure he rubs shoulders with individuals from those various different groups if he isn't part of them himself. I mean, if you look at his involvement with various different programs like the SpaceX program and different things, I mean, average individuals just can't put these types of things together and get that kind of money and work with these types of institutions. So, you know, he's obviously extremely well connected. In terms of why he's being able to do what he's doing with the Tesla Motor Company, I mean, who's to say? I mean, maybe we're on the cusp of a shift. Maybe the industry will change shortly, and you know, who knows? Maybe these are just the guys to control the next wave of it. I'm not quite sure, but nothing happens by chance. Nothing's random. You know, everything that happens is happening for a reason.
No, absolutely. We are talking with Patrick Whyte tonight on Spaced Out Radio. ConspiracyCulture.com is his website. He also has a store in downtown Toronto, Ontario called Conspiracy Culture. Moving on from the gas prices to what other energies we could use in order, because I think we all know seawater or wind technology would actually work a heck of a lot better than oil. It's a lot healthier for our planet as well. But let's step into some territory that a lot of people are still uncomfortable with. 9/11. One of my big things on 9/11 isn't so much what happened in New York. And I think a lot of people try to focus on what happened in New York. We'll get into that in just a moment. It isn't so much the Twin Towers. It's Building 6. It's the Pentagon. It's the lack of an aircraft that apparently crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. How much does 9/11 fire you up?
Oh, it was traumatizing for me, and I think that's why it was such a strong catalyst. You know, it's at the time I was doing technical production for an overnight online radio station. And I was getting off at 7 and was getting home just maybe like 10 minutes after the first plane had hit. And my dad was picking me up from the subway station. And as I was coming up from the subway tunnel, as we sort of looked at each other, he starts honking the horn, and he's like flashing the lights, and he's like waving me to the car really fast. And he's like, "Oh my God, this like shit's happening, like something really crazy's happening." So we sat there for like 15 minutes just listening to the news, and then decided to bolt home, and I literally was glued to the TV set. And it's like, it's upsetting even thinking about it when you think about all the bullshit that's happened as a result of that day's events, which is complete shit and complete and utter lies. And how much more suffering has been foisted onto the general populace as a result of that. Like, I was traumatized watching people screaming and dying, falling from buildings, buildings collapse, like that. Like, it shook me really, really hard. And Like, how could someone that watches that not be motivated to find out what's really behind that? And if you start finding information that is making sense to you, how do you not want to share that with other people? Like, I don't understand it. For me, it was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced in my life. So if there's anything I can do to shed light on it and to add perspective to other people so that they can have they are a little bit more secure with what they really know happened that day. These are the types of things that I'm trying to do with the shop. It's important for me, for people to know what really happened. I don't know what really, really happened. I can't say for certain, but I have a good idea as to what happened and to why. And it's upsetting that all of that had to take place and that we were all traumatized for weeks on end watching those images over and over and over and over again. Like, it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you my 9/11 story. I got called into the newsroom when it happened, and as everybody in the newsroom was, because even in Vancouver, when you have something that world-altering and changing, knowing that it's going to take you into an unnamed World War III, which it pretty much has, it's a life-changing event. It was our JFK for our generation. And I remember this, and this is probably the biggest memory I have on a personal level. I was a sports reporter. Before I became a journalist, I worked as a hockey instructor. And a kid that I had trained from the age of 14 was actually at Madison Square Garden for his first New York Rangers training camp. And I was glad to find out that he was okay. I ended up talking to him a couple days later. I called his dad on that day just to make sure that everything. But here's the story that stuck with me. On the first plane that hit the towers, coming out of Boston, there were 2 Los Angeles Kings NHL scouts on that plane, Mark Bavis and Garnet Ace Bailey. And I called up the Vancouver Canucks and talked to their head scout, a gentleman named Ron Delorme. And I said to him, "Hey, Ron, I know it's a tough day with everything that's going on, but I could really use a comment." And Ron is just one of the most accommodating individuals you could ever meet. And Ron says to me, "Sure, Dave, just ask away." So I was asking him about how much he knew Mark Bavis and Ace Bailey, because scouting in any professional sport is a real fraternity. They travel together, and he started telling some incredible stories, including a story how Ace Bailey, when they were on the road during Canadian and American Thanksgiving, would always make at his hotel room, he would always rent a suite with a kitchen in it. And in that kitchen, he would make a turkey dinner with all the fixings for the Canadian scouts and the American-born scouts who were traveling across the country. So we do the interview for about 10 minutes. And at the end, I stopped the tape and I said, "Hey, Ron, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it." And then here's the thing that broke my heart. He says, "Hey, Dave, can I tell you something?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "I didn't know they were on the plane until you told me."
Wow.
And I was like I felt just absolutely heartbroken for him, right? Because him and Ace Bailey were very, very close friends. And, I still feel for him on that note, right? So, but it opens up a lot of questions. And you know what? We got about 2 minutes before we're going to go to break, and we're going to carry this conversation right through to the top of the hour. And I'm hoping you're having enough fun that you want to stick around for hour number 3 as well, because I got a ton more questions to ask you, especially about aliens, UFOs. And you can tell me during the break if you want to. But
sure.
But when it comes to it, Patrick, what sticks out for you the most about 9/11? Is it Building 7 that collapsed when nothing touched it? Is it the missile instead of the airplane that seemed to hit the Pentagon? Is it no plane at Shanksville? What is it?
Oh, there's just a cornucopia of anomalies that just peck out in my brain. Like you said, there's just a list that you could go through from, how two massive three structures, two of which were hit by planes, and then, of course, the Tower 7, which collapsed at free fall speed, which also on the BBC had been reported collapsed already, where the woman was giving the report, but yet the building was still standing in the background, to the missile-shaped punched hole in the Pentagon, like you said, the lack of plane in Shanksville, just different stories that were told by people who were driving around the Pentagon at the time, people who had their video cameras confiscated by intelligence communities, all sorts of different things. I mean, if it was one or two, sure, you might be able to convince me, but wow, it's
there's too many question marks.
I remember, yeah, there's just too much.
Patrick, let's hold on to this until the next half hour here. Let's all refocus on this. Let's go for a break. I want to get into Building 7. I want to get into Shanksville because there's a lot of things we need to go over, and then we'll carry it on over. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. Patrick Whyte is our guest. His store in Toronto, Ontario is called Conspiracy Culture. The website, I highly suggest you check it out, listeners. It's conspiracyculture.com. Patrick will also take part in the Alien Cosmic Expo happening in Brantford, Ontario, June 24th through the 26th. So check that out as well. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Fairies? Bigfoot? Dogmen? Trolls? Goblins? Hey, if it's cryptid in any way, I'm looking into it. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, also known as Spaced Out Radio's Crypto Guru. Join me every second Wednesday of the month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will talk about the stories people call tall tales. I will fill you in on the latest sightings and the hidden histories that are causing quite a stir. You can find everything at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings. No matter where you are, it's time for you to make time for you.
Would you like to expand your clientele? Have you ever thought of online radio advertising? Check out spacedoutradio.com to get your name out there. Our listeners support those who advertise with us, so why not give it a try? We have the most competitive advertising prices out there. Just click on the advertising tab on spacedoutradio.com and contact us today.
Are you an ET experiencer, but you just don't know what's going on? Are you too timid or shy to discuss it with anyone? Maybe I can help. Join me, R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of every month on Spaced Out Radio, and I will help you to find the answers you're looking for. Together, I will help you understand the off-worlders and the true meanings behind your experiences. All you have to do is join us in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. See you there.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Appreciate everybody listening in on the SHR Media Network. Over on Paranormal Forum, we appreciate you guys listening in as well. If you're on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, keep it going. You guys are doing great, as well as on Facebook. The SOR Space Travelers and Euphoria Chronicles, thank you so much for tuning in. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we're stepping back into the paranormal. Mike Ricksecker, the Ghostorian, will join us as we talk about haunted history. It'll be a lot of fun tomorrow night. Tonight, we are talking with Patrick Whyte from Conspiracy Culture. Before we bring Patrick back on, I do want to remind you, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. You can subscribe to our archives on that one. And our website, which will have a new look here coming very soon, is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, we bring in Patrick Whyte. Conspiracyculture.com is his website. He will be taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo. And we thank Patrick for staying up late out of Toronto, Ontario. We do appreciate it. Patrick, are you there?
I am here, brother.
There you are. Good to have you with us. I thought there was all of a sudden a conspiracy that you were gone.
No, I'm here. I got distracted for one split second.
It works for me. Hey, right before the break, we started talking a little bit about 9/11. I really don't want to focus on the towers. We talk a lot about the towers. But let's face it. There was thermite found in the wreckage of Building 7 when it collapsed. And it collapsed at free fall speed. And it wasn't only the BBC in London that was reporting that it had fallen. CNN with Aaron Brown was doing the exact same thing. And the footage that showed Building 7 still standing, all of a sudden mysteriously got cut off. Like the signal went down. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if you're seeing it on the television, it's like they say, television programming. And, anything can be manipulated on a screen, but it's the fact that they cut it obviously tells something. It's obviously not typical for a news station to cut a feed of a major global event like that. And they probably got a little too excited and ran the story 5 minutes before they should have.
I found that completely unethical as a journalist, and I'm really surprised that a lot of people, especially in the journalism community, did not really open up to that fact or press harder on that fact when it came to Building 7, because nothing hit it. Sure, there was a fire inside, but a regular fire that was caused by debris falling from the other two towers shouldn't have been enough to bring that building down.
Sure, but also, too, keep in mind that for all of the journalists who may have wanted to push or press a little bit harder, that were working within the mainstream realm. Think about how many of these newspapers are controlled by the CIA. So what editor is going to allow anything that's contrary or different from the mainstream rhetoric to appear in any of the major publications? It's just very unlikely. The media is just so contrived and manipulated. It's just, I'd be shocked if we were to ever see anything at any point with any hint of truth come out in the mainstream news regarding 9/11.
You know what, the one thing that bothers me, and I've talked about it a few times on this show, but more so privately, is when you look at the Pentagon, and what convinced me that it wasn't a plane coming out of the Pentagon. I was coming out of visiting friends in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we had a real milk run to get back to Vancouver. We had to fly into Reagan International in Washington, then over to O'Hare in Chicago to finally get home to Vancouver. I never knew that Reagan International was literally right beside the Pentagon. And what amazes me about the Pentagon story is you never hear eyewitness accounts of a plane flying erratically over the city. You only see the blip of the video where it looks like a sharp point, and then it's edited until the explosion. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, firstly, I agree that it is odd that in a city so heavily populated that nobody had any sort of account of seeing a low-flying plane going towards the Pentagon. And then also, too, there's the fact that all of the footage from all of the cameras from anywhere within however many miles were completely confiscated. It just shows that there's some sort of a cover-up taking place. I mean, if we were supposed to know the truth, every single one of those video cameras and their footage would have been made public. We would have been able to watch all of them ad nauseum. But yet, I don't think any of it's been released to this date. So I do find it very fishy, yeah, for sure.
How ironic is it that whatever hit the Pentagon, plane, missile, whatever it is, just happened to be in the same section that not only was going under renovations, but the exact same place where an investigation was being held from the day before, where $2.3 trillion in budget money went missing that Donald Rumsfeld was on the hook for.
Well, sure, and think about the monies that Silverstein saved and gained as a result of the insurance and not having to deal with the asbestos and all of the various different files and the companies that existed within Tower 7. And I mean, it's just so incredibly amazing, all of these various coincidences, all synchronizing and converging all on this one day.
What do you think hit the Pentagon?
A missile.
Do you believe that footage that is out there right now, it's almost like a reversed YouTube video that's been making the rounds on social media, which shows a missile being fired from almost like a parking lot area rather than it being fired from elsewhere? Have you seen that footage?
No, I haven't, but I'm extremely curious to see it now.
Yeah, it's pretty. I don't know if it's true or not, because you just can't believe everything you see on YouTube because of the CGI and everything like that. But it makes sense. The other thing that made weird sense or no sense to me was the original reporter who was at the Pentagon after the explosion was standing way in front of the hole where the plane or so-called plane should have hit, and the light standards were still up. Yet later on showed footage that the highway light standards and the street light standards were all knocked down. Have you seen that?
I think there was a video that I saw at one point where there was a taxi driver who was being interviewed, and he was telling a story about how he was basically pulled over and was told to stick to a specific story, and that to tell people that his car was going this way, and that he saw a plane knock certain light posts over, but that he saw people tipping, like pushing having the posts knocked over. All kinds of interesting things. There's 100 different contrary stories that you could hear about what was going on, which, you know, right off the bat, if there's that much confusion, it's obviously meant to be that way, so that whenever they decide what story they want to stick with and run with, you know, everybody just jumps on board and that's it.
Then there's also the fact that the so-called pilots who had a total of, I believe, 100 hours, if not less, of training in a 757 cockpit and couldn't even keep that plane going in a simulator, couldn't keep it from crashing, was supposed to do a high-end, high-speed turn after the takeoff to line up with the Pentagon and then fly it at 30 feet, which most professional pilots say is absolutely impossible, and here a rookie was supposed to do that and fly that 757 right into the Pentagon. It just, like, you have to wonder who is coming up with these stories, because the facts are showing that it's literally impossible for someone with that little training who has never flown an aircraft, who is crashing every time on a simulator. There is no way that he could, you know, get the gift from Allah in order to make it happen that one specific time.
Of course not, but that's just the story. It's no different than, you know, everything's disintegrating as these towers are collapsing and burning and whatnot, but yet there it is. There's the pristine passports telling us who these hijackers were within however many hours of the impact. Mm-hmm. So again, it's just these are well orchestrated, well thought out false flag events that have been in the works for quite some time, and when they decide to unravel them, I mean, these are the types of things that we see, right? I mean, if you think critically, sure, your brain starts to pulse and you can start to smell burnt toast, but for the general populace, it's like, if it's on television, well, gosh, it's got to be true, right?
Well, you know what? It leads to just so many different questions. Then you focus on Shanksville, where the plane apparently disintegrated as it hit the ground. Now, some people will say that it crashed in and the aircraft went into an underground mine shaft and that's where all the parts went. But either way, that is the first crashed aircraft of that size to not leave any pieces whatsoever, or very few pieces whatsoever, in a crash site.
Sure. I mean, I could fit that same amount of debris in my trunk, you know. So it's just ridiculously unbelievable to see the footage, and then to have to subscribe to the notion that a commercial airliner with people on board had crashed there. It's just, I mean, if you turn off the sound of the news and you just look at that scene and you try to convince yourself that a plane crashed there without listening to some talking head suggest it to you, I mean, you'll never come to that conclusion. So
you would think there would be fuselage pieces. You think there would be tail sections. You think there would
giant
be
engines.
A black box. This is the first recordings in history where the black boxes have disintegrated and they're supposedly indestructible. Let alone the fact that recorded calls that were traced had, and this one sticks in my mind from the Shanksville flight, where one of the passengers called his mom from the plane and said, "Hello, Mom, this is so-and-so," and gave his first and last name. Your son. This is your son, so-and-so. Who does that to their mother?
Not me.
Not me either. And I'm sure none of our listeners. I have a question coming in for you from the SOR Space Travelers Room from Bill Cardwell. Since the internet was originally developed as a military asset and never intended for public use, do you think it just got away from them, or do you think it is a Trojan horse used to bring the government into our homes without us being aware of the extent of it?
It's tough to think that anything really gets truly out of their control. So, while it gives us access to all sorts of information and various different things, like you said, it allows the surveillance to get that much closer to us in our homes. I mean, if you look at the average person, everybody is walking around with these smartphones, which, has a built-in GPS locator, which has two-way microphones, which has two-way cameras. If you look at the patents and the technology that Apple owns, it's very interesting. They have televisions which can see into your home. They have video games which can mimic and mock the movements of the kids in the room and have the cartoon characters on the screen do the exact same motions. I mean, I would say it's more of a tool for the government than it is for the people. Definitely.
Do you think the resulting Patriot Act out of 9/11 was just another way to invade our homes, to invade what we are doing on a personal level? Or do you really think it was for national security? Because up here, Bill C-51 is pretty much the same way that former Prime Minister Stephen Harper got enacted before he left office.
Well, it's securing something, but it's definitely not the rights and the freedoms of the individual, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. So, typically what you will see after one of these large terror events is the removal of freedoms and liberties in exchange for more security. And more often than not, I would subscribe to the notion that these are just orchestrated events. Just ways to get more control over the populace, for sure, 100%. I mean, it's like, look at the airports, like the lineups of the TSA that you see on these YouTube videos where it's like 3,000 people long and it's taking hours and hours and hours. Guys got to get to airports like 4 or 5 hours early just for domestic flights, and just them going through everything and getting access to emails, having access to phones, like all this stingray stuff that's happening with the cops. And now it's getting into the predictive crime, like the whole Minority Report stuff. It's just the technology. It's so ridiculously pervasive, for sure. Everything's being monitored.
Gloria has a question in the SOR Space Travelers Room for you. And she is asking, if the plane did not crash in Pennsylvania, where did the passengers go? What do you think happened to them?
It's tough to say. I mean, they have detention camps and things all over the United States that people are unaware of. I mean, I think it was just within the last year, some stuff had been uncovered about sites in Chicago where they were illegally detaining people and holding people. And so, they can make people disappear very easily these days, whether it's a single individual or 200, 300 people on a flight. What they do with them, where they put them, I would have no idea. My guess is that it wouldn't be somewhere pleasant, and that the people were ultimately eliminated.
Well, another interesting point to this is the disappearance of MH Flight 370 from Malaysian Airlines. They still haven't found the plane. It apparently crashed in the ocean, or so they say, because it just disappeared. There's even stories that an alien mothership scooped it up right out of the sky. But when you look at it, that plane was eerily close to Diego Garcia, which is a United States very large military base that's been there since World War II. And the thing that threw me off about that was two things. When a cell phone hits water, it turns off, which means if you have voicemail, the phone isn't going to ring. Family members kept trying to ring the phones, and they were ringing and ringing and ringing and then going to voicemail. The other thing is, for those phones that are hooked up with Facebook and the Facebook app, when you are online, it shows a little green dot. And there were passengers still on that plane with a little green dot. Now, if the phone is off and Facebook means it will not work on the app, how are those people still showing as active on the social media website?
Well, your guess is as good as mine.
But it's the same thing as 9/11 with Shanksville. Where did the people go? You know, then you learn.
Sure.
Then you learn that there was, I believe, 20 or 30 Chinese military experts on electronic counter warfare. Well, could the U.S. use them right now as they're trying to figure out with what to do with China, considering China owns most of the U.S. debt? It's intriguing.
Did that tie in with the whole Rothschild inheritance and whatnot?
It may have.
And the Carlyle Group and all that stuff?
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's so many different voices. And then you go back to 9/11, uncovered by the movie Loose Change. If you've never seen it, I highly suggest you go on on YouTube to watch the movie for free. But if you go on that, they will tell you that the same flight numbers, or one of the same flight numbers, was seen in and recorded in Cleveland, Ohio. Yet that plane was supposed to have crashed a few days previous in 9/11.
So clearly there's something going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do a lot of people come into your store talk about 9/11? Is it still a hot button topic for a lot of your clients?
Sure. It's like you said, it was the JFK for our generation. So just like myself, I mean, there were tons of people who were glued to the television that entire day, watching the entire day unfold. And, I mean, who did it not affect? I mean, it's affected every single one of us. So it's always a talking point for most people. Definitely.
Oh, I fully agree with you. Fully agree with you on that. We got a couple minutes before we're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. I want to wrap up the 9/11 talk because I really would love to get into what you're going to be doing with the Alien Cosmic Expo going into the next half hour. Do you think that we will ever be able, Patrick, to know the truth as to what really happened on 9/11? Most specifically, the hidden and confidential and top secret 28 pages that people are pushing to get released?
Well, when you think about how we're still waiting for certain documents to be revealed pertaining to the JFK assassination, it's tough to say. I mean, I'm 40. I don't think the public will know the truth about 9/11 in my lifetime. Maybe in the next generation or the one after that. Or actually, you know what? I doubt it. When you think about the censorship and just how tight the control is on information now, for me to actually digress and say that, or regress and say that it's actually going to get better as time goes on, I'm kidding myself. No, I don't think we'll ever know the truth about 9/11. I don't think the media or the government will ever admit it. I mean, there may be independent researchers and independent organizations that have, their own funding that might uncover certain things. But for the government or the media to ever admit to us what really happened that day, that's just, I really don't think that will ever happen, no.
And you know what? I agree with you, and it's sad. I once heard on this show from a guest who is really into conspiracies that basically the quote is this: there are two things that will get anyone in trouble with the U.S. government. A, it's talking about JFK, and B, it's investigating the truth behind 9/11. Everything else, from aliens to gas wars or whatever you want, the government doesn't care, but they are very, very sticky on giving up information on those 2 points. And when you hear that, you have to wonder what's truly behind the facade.
Sure. It's a giant octopus for sure.
I'm going to get you to hold on, Patrick. We're going to hop out for a break here at the top of the hour. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Patrick Whyte is our guest. We're going to battle through another hour because I know this guy in Ontario, 3 hours ahead, is getting pretty sleepy, but we're going to battle through. Patrick's website is conspiracyculture.com. That's also the name of his store in Toronto. Patrick will also be taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo on June 24th through 26th in Brantford, Ontario. If you're on the East Coast and you're looking for something to do that weekend and you're in the United States, drive on up. It's going to be worth it. Stanton Friedman, Richard Dolan, Grant Cameron, Steve Bassett, Patrick Whyte, Victor Vigiani, and many, many more. We'll be right back after this break.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Readings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a room reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's Cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning in if you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, over on Paranormal Forum, as well as the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker and on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles and the SOR Space Travelers. It is good to have you with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, we're stepping back into the paranormal. Mike Ricksecker will join us. We're going to talk to the Ghostorian about the history of paranormal hauntings. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you tune in to join us then as well. Reminder to you, if you want to follow us on Facebook, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our new look website, which should fire up in a couple of weeks, is spacedoutradio.com. I do want to remind you, if you have any ideas or guests that you would like to hear on this show, you can email us at bookings@spacedoutradio.com. Highly suggest you do that if there's someone you want to hear on Spaced Out Radio. Tonight we are talking conspiracies with Patrick Whyte. He is part of the Alien Cosmic Expo that is coming up June 24th through the 26th in Brantford, Ontario. We're going to have a number of the speakers coming on to this show, talking about what's going on at the expo, what is going on with their field of study. Patrick owns a store called Conspiracy Culture. He's owned it for about a decade here in Toronto, Ontario. The website is conspiracyculture.com. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
My audience really appreciates you going the full distance. I know it's tough. It's laid out for you, but we really do appreciate you going the distance with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate everybody tuning in. It's great. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Love y'all.
Let's talk a little bit about the Alien Cosmic Expo coming up June 24th through 26th. You're going to be playing a part in that. What are you going to be speaking at, or what is your role with it?
Well, actually, I am going to serve as a vendor. I will not be speaking in any capacity, only to customers and fellow attendees. But for the duration of the Alien Cosmic Expo, my beautiful wife, Kadina, and I will be manning our several tables in one of the vendors' rooms. So I will have a bevy of books pertaining to all these different subject matters that we're discussing tonight. But definitely an emphasis on everything to do with extraterrestrial topics, aliens, UFOs, visitations, so on and so forth.
When you get down to it, and there's going to be a lot of speaking in regards to disclosure, in regards to extraterrestrial contact, in regards to ufology, is that a hot button topic around your store?
It's definitely a topic. I would say it probably ranks in the top 4. I would say I'd put it 4th in terms of general interest.
Do you get a lot of people who are experiencers of alien contact coming in?
Sure. Over the years, we've had many people who've come in that have shared their stories with us. Fascinating stories. And like I was saying about the pilot earlier who would come in and show us photographs, I've probably had at least a dozen customers over the decade come in with different photographs that they themselves have taken of crafts, and all of which were extremely fascinating. I had one gentleman who was from, I think, the Peterborough region, and he brought in a series of photographs of these. You ever see those light ropes? They just look like long illuminated cords of rope that float through the sky as if they were pieces of rope caught in a stream. So
Yes.
he had these. So he had this phenomenon occurring over his property over the course of a good year and a half, 2 years, and the photographs he would bring in were just mind-blowing. So there's definitely an interest, yeah, for sure. And we have people come in that say they've seen crafts over Toronto, crafts over Downsview Park, people who say they've seen things going into and out of Lake Ontario, people who've seen things up north while camping, all sorts of stuff.
When it comes to contact, which is going to be a main focus of the Alien Cosmic Expo, do you think that it is downplayed these days by the experiences people are having?
It's tough to say. I mean, how do you really gauge it, right?
True enough, but there's a lot of people who feel that they are ignored, that they're, like we talked about in the first hour of the show, there's a lot of people who believe that because they're an experiencer, they're not going to be believed. They're not going to have a lot of people believing in their story about what happened to them, whether they were abducted, whether they just had contact. I mean, there's a lot of naivety regarding the subject still out there.
Sure, and I mean, who wants to be labeled as crazy and cut off from further dialogue and just have everybody dismiss them as a kook, right? I mean, it's something that not everybody will buy into, and I guess after trying to share their story with one person, and if that first person reacts indifferently and treats them as though they're crazy, I mean, that just sets the tone right there. Who are they going to feel as though they can approach? I mean, if they go and what are they going to do? Call the cops? Go to the government? They might feel as though they're going to be locked up and put away in a crazy room for the rest of their life. So yeah, it's definitely difficult for these people to come forward. But as time goes on, it's like everything else. More and more people are able to connect and communicate and share their ideas and their experiences through the internet and through radio programs just as this. So communities start to develop, they start to foster and foment, and people have outlets now. So it's not like it was 20 years ago where you had absolutely nowhere to turn. Now there's all sorts of places. There's people and organizations that do nothing but help people out with these types of things.
A lot of people who are in the professional field of investigating this, they tend to feel that people who are experiencers aren't the story anymore. Whether they've been abducted, whether they've had basically rape done to them, male or female, whether they've had surgeries. We've heard women being, showing all signs of pregnancy, and when they go for an ultrasound, there's no fetus in their stomach. We've heard the nightmares that have happened. We've also heard the good in contact, where We have people who are saying, I've become more spiritually enlightened with my experience. I believe a lot stronger in God, or I believe a lot stronger that there is more to life than what we know on this planet. So it goes both ways. But there are a lot of people out there right now who are dismissing the experiencer because it doesn't have anything to do with the science of the field. It doesn't have anything to do with the disclosure movement. What is your reaction to hearing that?
I think it should all be considered. It's all part and parcel of the same phenomenon, really. You can't dismiss certain aspects of a phenomenon just because it doesn't fit into whatever it is that you're investigating or whatever your field of expertise is. I can see how some people would want to write it off and not consider it, because it's like we were talking earlier about how do you gauge the sanity and the seriousness of each of these people. You know, I don't know if there's any particular test that can be run to gauge the accuracy of these people's stories. So I think it's up to the individual that's listening to these people to determine whether or not there's any truth to it. But, you know, it's tough. It's tough. You know, and one person's story from the next can be so different. It's like, how do you know what's true from what's not? I mean, there's nothing in the sense of a guidebook to say, you know, this is what's really out there. So if someone's depicting these people or this race is this, they're nonsense. But I don't know. How do you know?
Well, in the end, I can understand where the so-called experts are talking, and I get their point that, you know, we need the government to disclose. We need the scientific proof that the military is back engineering spacecraft at Area 51 or Dulce or wherever it may be happening. It could be happening in Cold Lake, Canada's largest military base. We don't know. And I understand the point of wanting to get through that. But I don't think, as someone who is an experiencer myself, that we can write off the true facts of what people are going through on a daily basis. You know, I mean, you just can't do that. Although a lot of the stories may not add a lot of substance to what you are studying or to what other people are studying, you still need to be able to understand that this is traumatic for a lot of people. And if you dismiss them, we could see higher suicide rates. We could see higher entry into mental facilities and more problems with mental facilities. Would you agree with that?
Well, sure. I mean, for someone to experience something so profoundly and to have the entire populace dismiss it and write them off as liars or crazy, I mean, think of what that can do to an individual. I mean, I would imagine that if that happened to me, I would shut down. And I mean, what do you do at that point? If you have nobody to turn to and nobody to listen to, you'd go crazy. You would absolutely go nuts.
So when you look at the field of ufology, what do you think is the biggest highlight of it, and what do you think is the biggest negative of it?
Oh, wow. I don't know. It's just such an amazing subject. There's so many things that I find interesting and fascinating, and there's actually so little that irritates me about it. I mean, clearly you have hucksters and frauds and things like that, and every facet of life and every field and every science and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything bad or that I deem hokey about the science of ufology. It's like, it's all fascinating. In terms of things that I'm super impressed with, I could watch UFO videos all day. It's great. People like Richard Dolan. Yeah,
yes.
Like guys like Richard Dolan and like here in Toronto, we have Paul Hellyer. Great. these people are fantastic. Victor Vigiani, who's also going to be at ACE. I mean, these guys are great speakers. These guys are so prepared and so well versed on these topics. And it's no supposition. There's like so little no supposition. It's all just hard facts, stats, data.
Eric from Paranormal Forum is asking, Patrick, do you believe that it could be the experiencers possibly stealing some of the thunder from the disclosure crowd, and that's why the disclosure crowd is putting the experiencers kind of on the back bench?
It could be. I mean, ego transcends everything. So in these tiny niche industries like ufology, everybody's sort of vying for the media's attention. So I could see how those in the disclosure movement might feel a little bit threatened or overshadowed by people who are having these experiences themselves. And but again, it's like everybody needs to work cohesively together because it's all ultimately one giant field of study, and everything is symbiotic. Like everything lends itself to the other. So to only look at half the pie, I mean, you're not going to get it in the end. You're going to pigeonhole yourself and limit yourself. But it could very well be that they're, like I said, maybe they just feel like the experiencers, these are the people who are having these experiences, and these are just people who are combating whatever political establishments are there fighting for disclosure. I don't know. I have no idea. Everybody has their own particular agenda, right? It's tough to say.
What is your opinion then of the whole disclosure movement? Because it will be a field of focus come June 24th through the 26th at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario.
Oh, I think it's absolutely imperative. It's very important. I have individuals working together to push for disclosure. That's fantastic. It's great. I mean, the government would never do it on their own. So to have these people who know what they're talking about and what they're doing it for the general populace, kudos to them. I tip my hats to them.
Are you surprised, as you look into the field of ufology, that there hasn't been any more politicians of substance, much like Paul Hellyer, come to the forefront and say, we have something happening here? It's, let's face it, the next biggest story to the second coming of Jesus Christ himself in mankind's history. Are you surprised that nobody else has stepped forward?
Well, now you're seeing certain political posturing by, Hillary Clinton, and just recently Obama had stated that, he may release certain documents before he leaves office. So clearly, just by them saying that that's something that they're going to do, shows that that's something that the general populace is clamoring for. Because if they're trying to cater to a certain demographic or a segment of the population, clearly that indicates that there's enough people out there that are asking for it. So now it's becoming more of a talking point in politics. But I think, I'm not quite sure when Paul Hellyer first started discussing it, but I think it might have been towards the end of his career or after he may have even left politics. And that's what might afford him the luxury of discussing this. Because I think if you're an active politician and you're at a certain tier of politics, I think this is one of those subjects that's pretty much off limits, and Hillary and Obama aren't really discussing anything. They're not disclosing anything. They're just making little thinly veiled promises and comments. So to even expect them, if they're elected, to do what they say they're doing now, I mean, again, they're politicians. They always make promises that they don't keep. It's just an angle to get a certain vote or to attract a certain demographic.
So with John Podesta as her right-hand man, if Hillary wins the Democratic nomination and eventually the White House, do you think disclosure happens, or do you think there's those who are above the president say, yeah, we're just not going to be mentioning this?
They may release little dribs and drabs of things that may not necessarily be classified anyways, but to the average viewer, they might find it new and fascinating. And, going about it that way, the general populace might feel as though they're leaking certain things, but they'll just drag it on and on, just like they do everything else. If it's something of that significance and it's that important, I mean, are they ever really going to tell the general public what's really going on? I mean, that's how they maintain their leverage and their control over everybody.
But wouldn't that mean that the hard work and efforts of people like Stanton Friedman, Grant Cameron, Richard Dolan, Steve Bassett pretty much be useless then? Or do you think that they have to keep the gas pedal down and keep pressuring the governments of North America, most specifically the United States, in telling what they know?
It's definitely important to have these individuals continue their fight. It's definitely a noble cause. I mean, there aren't many people that are doing it, and it's sort of like me with the bookshop. It's like, how many people out of 1,000 are going to come into the shop and purchase a book on these like super ultra niche topics? Not many. I don't make a lot of money. I'm in it to make sense, not dollars. And it's more about the passion and about the cause. I do it because I feel like it's important, and there are no other bookstores in Toronto that put a focus on these subjects. It's the 4th largest market in North America. That's a lot of people. So if I don't have my bookstore, who's going to consolidate and aggregate all of these materials and information into one place so that people can have access to it? Who's going to do that? So I don't know. I feel it's almost like this is sort of like my calling, and I'm sure all of these people working the disclosure movement, I'm sure they feel the exact same way. And I love all those people for it. It's great. I don't think that any of those people should be doing anything else but what they're doing right now. Don't stop, guys. Just keep up the great work.
Do you see, if disclosure happens, where a store like yours becomes of the utmost importance, because it's going to send a lot of people, or it has the potential to send a lot of people into absolute panic mode?
I think there would definitely be an increased spike in terms of traffic to the shop for sure. Because again, people are going to want to make sense of what's going on, and they're not going to get satisfactory answers from the mainstream media and, from your educational systems or the government. And being around for a decade and doing all the events that we do and having the clientele base that we do, and, for sure, I think we would have an important pivotal role in helping people make sense of everything, for sure. That's why we're there.
Do you think, in your mind, and you deal with this on a daily basis, that the public of North America is ready for any type of disclosure?
Oh, that's tough to say. I mean, the fact that there's McDonald's still on every street corner, and it's like there's just so many things that when I see what people still embrace and what the average person still gravitates towards, I always second guess whether or not society is ready for disclosure. But I mean, maybe that's just what we need to shake us up a bit, make us contemplate things greater than whether or not I want to watch the Kardashians or Jersey Shore. Maybe that's what we need. And it's, to me, that would be great. It would be sort of like JFK in the sense that I appreciate what happened on that day, not because someone lost their life and whatever else, but just because it was such a shock to the average person. And now they would start to question their government. So, maybe disclosure, maybe society isn't ready for it, but maybe it's what we need.
See, the way I look at it is any type of disclosure, big or small, is really opening up a major Pandora's box. Because in the end, much like you see with the field of ufology, it isn't about the experiencers anymore. It's about disclosure. It's about ancient aliens, and was mankind created by ancient aliens? I think you're opening up a real Pandora's box with disclosure, because people will start asking questions about how long has the government known? What kind of secrets are you covering up? And in reality, it starts with Roswell on forward. Shag Harbor in Nova Scotia for us Canadians. Our own Roswell there, right? And I'm not sure that the big verbal and internet jousting that will take place, I don't think the mainstream public, or the journalists for that matter, are ready for it.
Yeah, they may very well not be, but like I said, sometimes society needs to be shaken up in order to realize that, hey, what's really going on here? Maybe there's more to it. Let's start asking questions. Let's start investigating. Let's start making our politicians accountable. Let's start getting some information out here. It's tough to say how things will unfold after disclosure.
Patrick, we're going to hop out for our final break of the night, so I'm going to get you to hold on. We are talking with Patrick Whyte tonight on Spaced Out Radio. ConspiracyCulture.com is his website. His store, Conspiracy Culture, in Toronto, Ontario. If you're in the Big Smoke, you can go check it out, and I highly suggest you do. Just to even chat with him, say hello. I heard you on Spaced Out Radio. I'm sure you'd love that. Patrick will also be taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo coming up June 24th through 26th in Brantford, Ontario. That'll be a great conference as well. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after our final break.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio?
Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us.
From the radio, commercials, to banners, to social media.
Have a product you'd like our host to endorse? We can do that too.
Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. Welcome back for the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Appreciate all of you listening in, especially those on the SHR Media Network, over in Paranormal Forum online, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles in our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. Good to have you with us. We're stepping back into the paranormal tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. Author Mike Ricksecker will join us. We're going to talk to the Ghostorian about historic hauntings. It's going to be an interesting show indeed. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. You can subscribe to that to check out our archives. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. It will have a new look here in the very near future. Tonight we are talking with Patrick Whyte. He is the owner of Conspiracy Culture in Toronto, Ontario. His website, conspiracyculture.com. This guy deals with conspiracies for the last 10 years on a daily basis. He's heard them all. Some of them are flat out ridiculous. Others have plenty of merit to them. Right before the break, Patrick, we were talking about disclosure on whether or not it will happen. And I still think it will. Do you believe that it's in the best interests of the United States government making it happen? Do you think it should be someone like the Pope? Or what Victor Vigiani said last week on this show, that maybe a country that has no vested interest, like Canada, should be the one to come out and say, this is what's happening?
Wow, it's tough to say. Such a major thing like UFO disclosure. Who would be the one to do it? That's a great question. My guess is that because the United States seems to play such a major role on the global theater, I'm guessing it would probably be America. Yeah, I don't see Canada for some reason being the force. I mean, that's just me. We always seem to take a backseat to the United States. And, yeah, my guess it would be America. I just because I'd be shocked if it was anybody else. Maybe the Russians, or maybe the Chinese, or maybe even Israel. But outside of those 4 nations, I can't see anybody else being the one to break UFO disclosure.
Well, let's focus on Canada for a second, because you're Canadian, I'm Canadian, this show is Canadian, and I do understand that most of our listeners are in the United States. As someone who has followed this closely like you have, what do you think Canada's role is in the whole disclosure movement? Do we have one?
Well, we do. I mean, there are definitely Canadians taking it upon themselves to be diligent and working towards disclosure. I mean, you had, like you said, you had Victor Vigiani on last week, and I mean, Victor could give you a list of names, 20 of people within Canada that are working hard. In terms of what the role specifically is in the global stage, it's tough to say. I mean, Paul Hellyer seems to be the leading figure in Canada for that, I guess, in terms of like people politically oriented. So I'm not quite sure what our role would be as Canadians. I think it's an individual role. It's up to us as individuals to just do what we can to work towards it. So to say what our role is as collectively as Canadians, I guess it's our duty as Canadians to be diligent and hardworking. I mean, we're smart people. Let's get at it. Let's do it.
I have been tweeting every day, and it hasn't gained any momentum just yet. But I've been tweeting Justin Trudeau on a daily basis, our Prime Minister, about what he knows about disclosure and will he make it happen if it happens in the U.S. Do you think our Prime Minister, as young and as virgin as he is at his job, would even go into that just yet?
First, if you're tweeting Justin Trudeau on a daily basis about disclosure, you'll probably have someone from CSIS show up at your house. In terms of whether or not a guy like Trudeau would be the guy, again, I mean, politicians are just ultimately mouthpieces for greater powers. So if those greater powers felt that Justin Trudeau was the right guy for it, then sure, he would do it. But again, it's all so calculated at this point, especially with something of such importance.
Do you think he's ready? Is he the guy who could bring it forward?
I'm still waiting for Trudeau to legalize cannabis here in the country before I start relying on him to rock the disclosure.
There's a conspiracy right there. Marijuana. We hear so many life-altering effects, from helping with cancer to glaucoma to helping deal with anxiety, depression. And Justin Trudeau ran on a platform that he was going to be legalizing marijuana. And it's supposed to happen in early 2017 here in Canada, where marijuana will be legalized. And yet, 2 weeks ago, in the heart of Toronto, where you are, there was, I believe, hundreds of people arrested for being in cannabis clubs that are around the country, including people who were having their medicinal marijuana taken away and now have criminal records. To me, that sounds like one hell of a waste of taxpayers' money. And you know what? I have a lot of friends who smoke marijuana. Hell, I live in British Columbia, which is one of the hotbeds in the world for growing pot. This seems like a real double standard, that we are going to waste taxpayers' money by giving all of these people criminal records for something that is 6-7 months away from being fully legalized in this country.
Sure. Well, the Bill Blair, who was the police chief, he had just the week prior had been visiting lobby groups for all of the licensed producers that are federally recognized. So, I mean, clearly it was pressure from the pharmaceutical industry to curb the dispensaries. And I think there was over 40 dispensaries that were shut down, and like you said, over 100 charges laid. And it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I've been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and I suffer from anxiety. And the only thing that will slow my racing thoughts and ease the anxiety and the borderline depression is cannabis. So I know that it works. And every single human being has a complete endocannabinoid system. So, I mean, explain that if we're not to use cannabis then. And it's just pharmacists, man, the pharmacy, it's the pharmaceutical industry. It's just so powerful. And it's just so much money at stake. I think they were ultimately the ones responsible for the crackdown.
But either way, it still doesn't resolve the fact that our prime minister ran on the whole auspices that marijuana was going to be legalized. That was one of his main platforms. And to have the Ontario Police Department or the Toronto PD crack down like this, it's an oxymoron of absolute stupidity and waste of necessity of police usage. Okay? Those police officers, it's much like when you hear about the quotas that highway patrol police officers have to get for their tickets per month. How many tickets per month do they need to get on a quota? Right? Are you here to protect the public, or are you here just to cause shit? And this is where people are not trusting the police, because the law says one thing, that it's going to happen, and let's face it, marijuana is everywhere in Canada. Everywhere. There's not a place in this country where it isn't grown. Hell, we're like Denmark or the Scandinavian countries that allow it. But when it comes to this whole situation, it makes no sense at all. And in the end, Ontario taxpayers, and more so Toronto taxpayers, are on the hook for the court bills, for the police using the amount of officers that they did, never mind the amount of investigators that had to go into everything. It's a waste, and it's uncalled for. Good people now have criminal records and can't travel because somebody wants to be an asshole. Pardon my language.
Sure, and I mean, also, too, when you think about just the sheer number of dispensaries that are in the city, why were only a certain percentage of them shut down? I mean, it's either all or none. So just that alone right there indicates that it's just, there's something more to the story.
What do you think it is?
Well, again, I think it's the major sorcery witchcraft champions of the pharmaceutical industry trying to clamp down on other people taking a piece of what they perceive as their pie. You know, I mean, it's all of these dispensaries that were open, they were all charging and paying taxes on their product. And, you know, it's just controlling people's well-being, really. I mean, I should ultimately be able to grow my own cannabis and use my own cannabis because I'm an adult and I can make mature decisions and I can take care of myself. But no, that's not the case. So, you know, it's like everything else. Do as we say and not as we do.
For sure. And if you look at the state of Colorado that legalized marijuana, they have seen a drop in marijuana possession charges. They have seen a 41% decrease in all drug arrests. They have seen, with taxpayers' dollars, an increase by over $1 billion to school budgets. They have seen a drop in crime by 31%. And that includes everything from murders to thefts to everything.
Sure, the teenage use decreases. I think everybody in the state got like a check for $1,700 because there was such a surplus of money. I mean, if there's definitely a model to follow, that would be it.
It is a little ridiculous. Add to the fact that there are so many health benefits for people, like you said. You suffer from Asperger's, you suffer from depression and anxiety. That is something I suffer from as well, is depression and anxiety. Glaucoma. Now, I will say this. I do start to wonder about the pro-marijuana lobbyists out there when we see so many different stories of what this product can cure. And I think that part may be a little bit dangerous. Maybe I'm being naive. I do recognize that there are benefits to it. But do you believe all these statistics that, that it can cure cancer, that it can help drive away certain mental instabilities? Do you believe all that?
Absolutely, 100%. It is the most miraculous plant to ever grow on Earth. And there's a great film. It's called Run from the Cure. It's a film about a gentleman, a Canadian named Rick Simpson, who was out in Nova Scotia, and he was growing cannabis. He had notified the local police authorities, the RCMP, the government, and he told them all that he was growing it. He wasn't selling it to people. He was basically making the oil, the concentrated oil, and he was administering it to people. And within 3 months, a lot of these people who had basically been told, just to go home and rest and relax and whatever limited time you had left, these people were going back and their cancer was completely gone. Like guys with walnut-sized tumors in their brain, they were going back and their doctor was just completely flabbergasted and perplexed as to what the hell were you doing? How did this disappear? What's going on? But the Canadian government kept throwing this gentleman, Rick Simpson, in jail and getting everybody sick again. And ultimately, at one point when Rick Simpson got out, he went over to the Netherlands, over to Holland, and they gave this guy humanitarian awards. So it's funny that here in Canada, the guy's being imprisoned for what he's doing, but over in Europe, he's being treated like a champion. But don't forget, too, it's always about the pharma. Just in case you're not aware, pharmacist, pharmaceuticals, pharmacy, all of these words are all derived from the Greek word pharmakeia, which translates loosely into witchcraft and sorcery. So it's a lot more than just profit and money going on with that particular industry.
We also need to realize, too, that a healthy population is not a profitable population.
Of course, sure.
I mean, when you hear marijuana being able to be used as a different sort of chemotherapy without the poisons that were literally put in Agent Orange back in World War I and World War II, I mean, we're dealing with something that is healthy. The other statistic I read recently, was that if you plant an acre crop of marijuana, it actually produces 10 times the oxygen of a major forest of trees.
Oh, and the soil, and the soil rejuvenation and all sorts of different things. It's incredible. It's an incredible crop.
Very interesting indeed. Is there a lot of marijuana talk coming through the doors?
Oh, sure. I mean, everybody's aware of what it can do, and people know the various different industries that are extremely threatened by it. And people just want to know more, especially with all the talk about its healing properties. Everybody is getting sick these days from all the stress and the garbage food and the crap in the water and the radiation from the TV and the cell phone towers and on and on and on. And if this one particular plant is proving to be a remedy to a lot of these ailments and diseases and sickness, I mean, sure, why wouldn't people want to know more about it? I think everybody should know about cannabis, especially its healing properties.
What is your opinion then, as someone who uses it for health concerns, when you hear doctors say we shouldn't legalize it yet because we haven't done enough clinical study on the plant and the effects that it has, positive or negative?
I'd say, well, that's kind of funny because it's really interesting to see how quickly you'll speed through other drugs with limited testing and research and so on and so forth. And those are synthetic chemical compounds versus a natural occurring plant. Seems a little bit silly.
It does, doesn't it? Do you think that the only reason why everything is being held back, especially in the United States, is because Big Pharma is afraid of the billions upon billions of profits that it will lose out on?
Yeah, but even companies like Philip J. Morris, one of the largest cigarette producers in the world, I mean, even they over a decade ago purchased large amounts of land in what's known as the Emerald Triangle in California, which is like pretty much the most ideal conditions for growing cannabis. So why would a company like Philip J. Morris purchase all that land to grow cannabis if certain things aren't happening within, I mean, who knows what will happen? Maybe in 10 years, maybe even in 5 years, the only cannabis people will have access to is genetically modified cannabis made by Monsanto. Maybe it's only going to be Monsanto Kush. Who knows?
Well, the rate people are growing it these days, I don't know if Monsanto would have the ability to push it on out. And unless they tie themselves in with some sort of police state which starts busting people much like they are today. But on the flip side, when we see less people in jail, and the fact that many states in the U.S., and I'm assuming it's going to happen here in Canada, for people having their records wiped clean for marijuana, it kind of makes you wonder about the spin that it's going to take with everything else. People could be let out of jail, when they were doing something illegal. I mean, think of California, for an instance, on their 3 strikes and you're out rules that they have, and people who were caught with marijuana as their 3rd strike. You have to wonder, do they all of a sudden get out of jail, or are they still there for life?
I don't know. That's a lot of cheap labor. Why would they want that cheap labor to go to waste? I'm sure they would find a way to keep them incarcerated.
Well, it is a profit margin, especially with prisons going down there, becoming private prisons as well. So it is interesting indeed.
Sure.
Changing topics quickly, because we only got about 5 minutes left with you. Do you think we landed on the moon?
Oh, wow. I would lean more to no.
How come?
Wow, that's Stanley Kubrick. It's tough. I mean, there's just so many different things. I mean, the waving flags, the various different shadows, the Van Allen radiation belt, just all sorts of different things. Who knows? I mean, I don't think we were. I think the original Apollo landings, I think that was all done in a studio with Stanley Kubrick.
I'm a believer that we did. I think, though, for a lot of the film footage to make it clear that Kubrick was involved one way or another, I still think that we were there. I had one lady on the show, Terry Ling. She is from MUFON, Florida. And she's good friends with an astronaut who was in the Apollo program. And this is where I believe the story. According to this astronaut, even though I'm telling it third hand or fourth hand at this point, when Neil Armstrong started walking on the moon, he apparently went onto the emergency channel and said 3 sentences that were very eerie. They are here, they are up on the hill, and they are watching us. And I found that very, very, very odd.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
Yes. So I do believe we went to the moon. I'm not as positive that a lot of the film footage that we saw, with its clarity, with its shadows, like you said, I could see it being touched up by Kubrick, who was a movie genius back in those days, especially when it came to 2001 Space Odyssey and everything like that. But I still think that we went to the moon. That's my opinion.
Sure. And we all got them.
I'll give you a couple of minutes here to tell us once again all about the conspiracy culture, your little business in Toronto.
Sure. So we have a bookstore in Toronto called Conspiracy Culture. We've been open since 2006. And we basically put a focus and an emphasis on all the alternative topics that are not represented in your mainstream bookstores. So everything from 9/11, terrorism, war, to alternative health, alternative technologies and sciences, cryptozoology, paranormal, the occult, aliens and UFOs, secret societies, ancient and lost civilizations. We've got tons of books, tons of DVDs, lots of magazines. We've also produced over 100 different events in the 10 years that we've been in business, bring all sorts of people to town. We have a website that's open 24/7, conspiracyculture.com. We update it every day with news, links, and videos. If there's any sort of an event taking place in Toronto that's noteworthy, we'll usually have a banner up on the homepage. And even if you just want to come by and chat conspiracy, I'm there. If the doors are open, I'm there. And we're open Tuesday through Saturday from 11:11 a.m. until 7:07 p.m.
Okay, why the weird store hours?
Well, it acts as sort of, there's two reasons. One, anybody who thinks critically or is even remotely curious, they're going to see the store hours and they're going to walk right in and want to know what the hell is going on. And then they're hooked because we got them. If you're curious and you come into our shop, I mean, you're going to just feel like a kid in a candy store. Alternatively, if you are completely stuck in the matrix and you find all of this stuff completely ridiculous and nonsensical, you're going to see store hours like that, and you're going to think everyone inside is smoking crack, and going inside is going to be the last thing you're going to want to do. And then I don't have to explain why I'm there and what I'm doing for 4 hours to someone who doesn't want to have any sort of open mind. They're just there to sort of shit on the idea. So it's, like I said, it's a couple of reasons.
And how much are you looking forward to the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario?
Oh, I can't wait. Last year was great. It was so well organized. The logistics were incredible. The speakers were fantastic. This year, they've improved everything. There's more speakers. There should be easily twice as many attendees there. If you're even within a 4, 5, 6, 7 hour drive from Brantford, I would definitely make the trip. It is so worth it. I mean, where else in Ontario are you going to have an opportunity to see all of these speakers all in one place over one weekend? It's off the charts.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think the only thing that upsets me about it is I'm not going to be there. I want to, but I'm just not going to be there. Well,
you'll be there in spirit.
Absolutely. I do have a quick comment from you for you from Eric Marcoum, who is in Paranormal Forum. He says he actually had a patient that was on the team that built the lunar excursion modules, and this person told him that the aluminum was so thin on these modules, you had to be ultra careful or you could literally poke through it with a screwdriver. That's very, very scary indeed. Very scary. You know,
I mean, I got at least 2 layers of tinfoil when I'm doing a turkey, right? So
exactly. Patrick Whyte, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us, and good luck with Conspiracy Culture and the Alien Cosmic Expo coming up June 24th to 26th.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me on your program. It was a real pleasure.
We'll do it again, my friend. Take care. Patrick Whyte, conspiracyculture.com is his website. You can check it out. And if you're ever in Toronto, go check out his store. I'm going to put that on my list when I finally make it to Hogtown. Battle my way through all the Leafs fans, pretending that the Stanley Cup is coming around sometime soon. It just won't happen. At least that's my opinion. Alien Cosmic Expo, June 24th to 26th. Spaced Out Radio will have many of the guests from that show and that conference right here on this show. I want to say thank you to everyone listening in on the SHR Media Network, everyone at Paranormal Forum, on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and on Facebook. Euphoria Chronicles and the SOR Space Travelers. A reminder, Space Travelers, tonight's password is epistemology. epistemology. That is the password, courtesy of Bill Cardwell. It's for the SOR Space Travelers. Thank you so much for being with us. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. You can subscribe to that. And our website, which will have a new look once again in just a couple of weeks, is spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night on the show, Mike Ricksecker will join us. We are going to talk paranormal, the Ghostorian, as he calls himself. We'll be talking about some paranormal history with us. It's going to look good. Let's go to our man, Bumblefoot. He's rocking it out for us as we close things out. We will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. Thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure. Jade Adams, thank you for your compliment on Paranormal Forum. Appreciate you taking the time. Says one of the favorite interviews that we have done on this show. Here's Bumblefoot taking us out. Our music man. Good night.